everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to my presentation, The Other End of the Call Light, a 24-hour immersion. This presentation is made possible with collaboration from the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire Healthcare Administration Program and faculty, as well as support from Provider Magazine, Senior Care Communities, and TWSL. To begin the presentation, I'm going to start with a simulation activity. Now, I was out in the audience and I see a lot of tablets, phones, and everything else, so I'm going to ask you all to put those aside. What I'd like you all to do is plant your feet promptly on the floor in front of you, feet flat, and I'd like your hands placed on your lap in front of you as well. During this next undisclosed time, I'm going to ask you not to move at all. This means no moving your head, twisting around, moving arms, legs, texting, or anything else. I will go back to this presentation in a moment about why you are doing this. Background to the immersion. As you just heard, I am a student. I have a practicum experience to fulfill my degree in Bachelor's of Science of Healthcare Administration. The practicum experience is 50 weeks, and I'm placed in a long-term care facility with learning from an administrator or campus director, really anyone the facility or organization wants me to learn from. So what I do is I shadow them for a year. I'm on their emails, I go to the same meetings, and I learn from them exactly what they're doing so I can one day be an administrator. The history of the Resident for a Day experience, my immersion. In 2001, the program had a resident for a day kind of coursework that students could choose to do it if they wanted to, but they really didn't have to choose from. With the inception of the CHASE board, the Center of Health Administration and Aging Service Excellence, they had some suggestions, and one of the suggestions was something like this, a Resident for a Day experience. Dr. Doug Olson led the revisions, and then this program became a requirement. Now, I can't really see out there, but I hope no one's moved yet. So with the revision process, again in 2009, Dr. Doug Olson and Dr. Jennifer Joes made this Resident for a Day immersion a requirement for the practicum students, which is why I had to do it today. However, there's a lot of leeway between what you can do and what you cannot do. So it was kind of up to me and my preceptor, Alan Barr, on how far I would take this immersion. I admitted myself to Woodbury Healthcare Center on June 8th, 2015. My diagnosis was I was suffering from a stroke, I had diabetes, and I had a vision impairment. To simulate this, for my stroke, I had 5-pound weights on the left side of my body. So I had a left-pound weight on my wrist, my bicep, and my ankle. Now 5 pounds doesn't seem like a lot, but trust me, at the end of 24 hours, it gets pretty heavy. I'm going to pause here. You may now relax, and I will come back to that. Thank you for participating. For diabetes, they didn't really have to do much, but the nurses were going to have to check my blood sugars 30 minutes before every meal and as well before bed. They didn't actually poke me, but they could have if they really didn't know that I wasn't a resident. For the vision impairment, I wore glasses for my immersion and I had my right eye taped over. I didn't think this would be that big of a deal, but I got dizzy a lot faster than I thought I would. In addition to my diagnosis, I was an assistive 1, which meaning I was dependent for all of my transfers. I was in a wheelchair and I had to have someone help me get out of bed, get into my chair. I had someone take me into the bathroom. Luckily, I got to do the bathroom part by myself, and then someone had to come back and get me, take me to all my meals. It's really eye-opening how dependent you have to be and how long a call light really is. In addition to that, my preceptor thought it'd be a great idea to take away all of my technology. So here I was, 22 years old, and I had no cell phone, no laptop, no tablet, no Nook for reading, and I was in a wing with everyone, 62 plus, and I had to try to get along with them or at least go to the same activities they were doing. Now that was not a requirement, but my preceptor thought it'd be a great idea to really immerse myself in the experience. Obviously, at first, I was not very happy about this. The admission process and assessments. So as you know, I admitted in the afternoon on June 8th. After I was all geared up with all of my stuff, I was brought to the transitional care unit. I met the social worker for my case, the RN on the floor and my nursing assistant at the time. It was really nice that the nursing assistant actually asked me if she could put away my things and make me feel at home. That's obviously not in her job description, and I thought it was really nice she was willing to do so. She then gave me a tour of the facility, so I got to see which dining room I'd be eating at, where the shower room is, the day rooms, and where the outdoor patio was, since it was summer. The nurse assistants then decided they thought it would be a good experience for me to be in a Hoyer lift. This was not part of my requirement since I was just an assistant of one, but I said, why not? I might as well try this. So I was placed in a Hoyer, and let me tell you, it is scary. One, you're strapped in the Hoyer, and your legs are extremely tight on your legs, and someone's propping you up over a bed, and they're wheeling you, trying to adjust you right. I thought I was going to fall, so I can't imagine someone who was actually, had an impairment or disease or something, that they were even more scared than I was, because I was completely fine and I was still scared. The admission process was extensive. Here I am in a room, I don't know anyone, I don't even really know the staff, because this was in the first week of my practicum experience, and all of these people are coming in and asking me questions. There were so many assessments and questions, and they all started to overlap, and I was exhausted. Now imagine if you have pain, you're recovering from surgery, and you're being asked all these questions. If I'm tired and I'm healthy, imagine how your residents feel. Additionally, the assessments, I had a BIMS assessment, a PHQ-9, therapy came in and assessed me. Everyone who has to assess you for an MDS came in, and they all came in within the first 2 hours. There's really no time for me to get acquainted with my room, or if my family was there, to kind of talk to them about the process. The actual immersion. So as I just stated, I was in the room, and about the first 2-3 hours, it was all just question after question. Marital status, what hospital I came from, what my diagnosis was, how I'm feeling, how do I feel about being in a facility. And after that came mealtime. Meals are still very institutional at my facility. Unfortunately, there's set meal times. For that meal, dinner was going to be served at 5:30. I wasn't even hungry. I'm used to my meal at 7 o'clock, and here the aides are telling me, come now to eat, otherwise you're not going to be able to have dinner. I don't know how some of you feel, but I don't really like being told when I can or cannot eat. My first meal, my preceptor and I decided was going to be a puree diet. So the menu was meatloaf and beef stew. So I think you can imagine what that looked like. Cat vomit, plus baby food, plus another thing I'm not going to say on camera. So that was my meal, and I had to try to eat that. So first of all, it didn't look very appetizing because of the color, and then also, we didn't have any set pureed molds at the time, which our facility is working on, so it's kind of just slush on your plate. So I did try it, and it wasn't the taste that was so bad, it was really the texture. I had a really hard time with the texture. It was really thick, and it kind of stuck to my mouth like, the top of my mouth like peanut butter. Luckily, the rest of my meals, I was able to choose what I had to eat. However, the meals still weren't really that up to par, and the facility doesn't really offer that many alternative meal options. The residents have to decide the day before if they want a different meal. Can you imagine someone asking you, what do you want to eat tomorrow? I know some of you do that with meal planning, grocery shopping, but for me, I don't know what I want the next meal, let alone what I'm going to have in 24 hours. The activities. On the transitional care unit, there aren't a lot of activities. These residents are here for short-term stay and therapy, so there's really not that much going on. The residents are able to go to second floor, our long-term care floor, but those activities are kind of bridge, and the acuity and cognitive levels are a lot different than our short-term residents. What I was appreciative of was integrative therapy. Our integrative therapy department came in and they gave me a really nice hand massage with lavender oils. Our integrative therapy department does essential oils, massage, Reiki work, and energy works. So that was really nice because one, I did know the integrative therapy nurse, and it was something that I appreciated and I could do alone in my room, which was still an activity. Other than that, the only other activity I really did was I did attend church on Wednesday morning, and I sat out in the patio outside with residents and talked to them. It's amazing what you can learn from a simple conversation. I had only been in my facility for a week at that point, and the residents and their families on the patio pretty much told me everything I needed to know about the facility. What staff were bad, that the benches need to be replaced, that there needs to be more areas for smoking, and how, some staff members don't have name tags on. Kind of all of this hearing when I first started was a little overwhelming, and I'm like, wow, we got a lot to fix. My overnight stay. So as a new admission, I'm sure a lot of you know that when you're new, you need to have your vitals checked every 4 hours. This meant I was going to be woken up every 4 hours during the night. I got woken up at 8 p.m., I was still up, midnight, and then 4 a.m. In addition to that, the nursing assistants do rounding. So again, I'm woken up every hour. A lot of residents do sleep through this, but I just so happened to be in the room with the squeaky door. So every time the door opened, I got woken up. Luckily, I was able to get that fixed with maintenance after I discharged right away, and no one else had that experience from thereafter. The overnight stay was very uncomfortable. The beds were very hard to what I'm used to, and they were also very small. The other thing that was the big issue was the call light. So the call light, everyone knows the call light. It's a pretty easy procedure. You push the call light and someone comes, or so you thought, or you hope someone will come. So my call light times, I charted them on my non-dominant side, so my right side. As I said, I had a stroke on my left, which is my dominant side. So I was doing all of this on my other hand. I charted, and they ranged from 3 minutes to 20 minutes. That's kind of a long time. So I learned that if you really, have to go to the bathroom, or you think you're going to have to go to the bathroom, you should push it before you actually have to go, because you don't really know how long it's going to be till someone gets you. The call light, again, I heard it went off. So my hallmates, whenever they wanted something, I heard their call light in the hallway of my room. I think this needs to be fixed. Our residents could have a better quality of life and a better night's sleep if we didn't hear those call lights. The discharge process was pretty simple. All I had to do really was listen to the social worker who set up my home care services and listen to the nurse about my education, and then I just signed a form and I was good to go. I thought that was a really nice, simple process, especially for someone who was in a transitional care unit and just wanted to go home. Key learning. I was in a facility only 24 hours, and I learned so much. First thing I learned was the residents who had family and friends visiting did a lot better and were a lot happier than the residents who were alone. So it is crucial to encourage open hours for visitors any time of the day, including pets, because residents are so much more happier and uplifted when these people come. Activities, as I mentioned earlier, we really need to start looking at what kind of activities do short-term residents want. Eventually, I think we're going to need to have iPads, tablets in all the room. We're also going to need to have cable TV in all the room, complimentary Wi-Fi. The residents nowadays in transitional care units aren't going to want to go to Bridge on second floor. Alternative meal options. I mentioned that our dining choices were somewhat limited. We're going to need more choices, maybe 24/7 room service, restaurant-style dining. The residents coming into facilities are not what they used to be, especially in our short-term rehab units, so we need to start meeting the needs, and if not anything, at least have somewhat more flexible mealtime hours. Transfer belts. I noticed when I was in my immersion that some of the nursing staff didn't use their transfer belts. If there's any nurses in here, obviously you know that's not a really good sign for someone to be seeing on their first week. After I was done, I met up with the Director of Nursing and Staff Education nurse, and we did an audit for the next month on transfer belts. The next thing was the admission processes and communication. As I mentioned, there was way too much paperwork, and a lot of it was overlapping questions. I decided that I think we need to streamline this process. I worked with my preceptor, social services, and admissions, and streamlined the admission process and made it more condensed in what actually needed to be told to the resident right away and what could maybe wait a day or two. I also redesigned our admission gift And I created a discharge gift. The admission gift now has more useful things in it, as well as labeled notebook and pens with our logo, and complimentary guest meals for guests who come in. For the discharge bag, we didn't have any discharge gift, and unfortunately, we do have some residents who come back to us. So for the discharge bag, I had a $5 limit on what each bag had to price, and we have nice cloth grocery bags with our logo on it, nice logoed tumbler, and then our contracted services, therapy, and then food, also donated items for the bag. So now residents have a stress ball with a therapy logo and a cold bottle of water with the food vendor's name. That way residents who leave us, they still remember what kind of services we give them and who to reach out to if they need to come back. Call lights. I talked about the call lights and how I could hear them when I was sleeping, and I didn't really think that was that necessary. I worked with our maintenance director, and we were able to turn off the call light beeping noise and have it only go to the nurses' walkie-talkies and the nurses' station. Now, I just preached to you about what I learned in a short 24 hours, and I'm sure you're thinking, well, that's great you did that, but why should I, or why is it beneficial? Well, what I'm going to say, you don't need to go say, all of my administrators, you're going to do this now, but really, I think everyone should start with yourself. You really will get much more out of it if you do it yourself. Involve your director of nursing and staff, let them know what you're doing so they actually come to you when the call light comes, and have a dependent diagnosis. You're only going to get out of it what you put into it. So if you don't need help getting in and out of bed or depending on someone, you really won't get that much out of it. And also immerse yourself in the experience. I didn't like that I didn't have any technology, but it made me get to know the staff and residents that much more and really take in the experience. Now, I had you do a simulation in the beginning of this experience. I'm hoping some of you felt anxious, fearful, maybe you thought I forgot about you sitting there. Well, that was just a short 5-minute time for a call light. Now, imagine that on average, call lights can be anywhere from 30 seconds to 25 minutes. So how would you feel if you had to do that? That was 5 minutes. I had that for 24 hours. So imagine another 1,435 minutes of feeling that way. I had a really great time in this experience, and to be honest with you, I really didn't want to do it. When I heard I had to stay overnight in a nursing home, I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. Like, I'm going to get out of it. Like, let me talk to Dr. Joe's and, I'll figure something else out. But I am so happy that I did it and went through this experience, and I was able to learn so much more, bring it back to my department heads and other people, and we were able to fix a lot of issues that a lot of people didn't even know existed. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, you can find me afterwards, or there's my contact information.